Hi, everybody. Sorry for being 2 minutes late. I was coding. We're doing quite a lot of stuff with the AI coding things. So, let's see about the connection. I think the connection is good. All right. So today's topic is going to be on what we call this, picking a backend. Now, picking a backend is arguably the most important thing. So I'm gonna talk about like how to choose a backend when you're building using AI, and put Momen in the context of other choices of a backend. Let me just turn on lights for now in case it gets darker. It's approaching dusk. So okay, so I prepared my slides. These are actual slides that I prepared for No Code Week Frankfurt approximately 2 weeks ago. So uh, if you're from Europe and then you're interested in like no code or some kind of quick development with vibe coding and all that, I recommend you go there probably next year, similar time. Okay, so first of all, what is Momen, right? So Momen is a full stack application development platform that is no code. We also are able to be used as just a backend, so you don't have to use the front end. So in this particular case, we're just going to evaluate Momen as a backend alone. For those people that have built using vibe coding or any kind of AI coding tool like Claude Code or Codex or Cursor, you know that you can build out the backend like really soon. You could use everything from scratch. You can build like using Postgres plus Java or Node.js, or you could use existing like semi-built out solutions, for example, Supabase or Xano or Backendless. Now, how do we choose between those? So I come up with a framework, which I will put into the description later, and the slides will go into description too, so you can test out those things yourself. So I came up with a framework, and then I asked AI, I think I used Claude or something, to go through every single platform and evaluate those platforms according to these benchmark rules. And I try to stay as objective as possible. But obviously, keep in mind I do own Moments, so I'm obviously going to be somewhat biased. But you can ask AI on how those benchmarks reflect reality. That's the disclosure. Okay. And just a little bit of like a spoiler. In the end, the Moment did not come out ahead on the top. We tried to, but we're not. So that should give you a little bit more trust on my positioning. Okay, so if you don't remember anything from this entire live stream, one thing I think you should remember is that guarantees are better than responsibilities. And what are guarantees? So a guarantee is something that a platform or a solution provides that makes a mistake impossible. So there's no way you can make that mistake. And a responsibility is something that you or the AI have to remember to do. Like you have to do it correctly every single time. And if you make a mistake, then you end up with GIGO. So my idea of a good backend for vibe coding is that it should give you as much guarantee as possible. Okay, so now why do we need to pick a good backend? People have done studies, and most of AI generated code has certain type of security flaws or data flaws, and you probably get that feeling yourself when you're just vibe coding without knowing the code, especially if you're non-technical. You get this lingering fear of whether my user's data will leak out or somebody's taking advantage of me through my mistakes. They're like leeching my data, or they are uh, or they are like what do you call them? They're not leeching data or burning my tokens. Let's say it doesn't stop the app from running. It just exposes you to risks, and then these are like realized risks. Okay, so how do we evaluate this? I came up with 9 criteria, and then I weighed them. Then I put on some hard disqualifiers. So if something doesn't match that minimum requirement, it cannot be ranked any higher than a particular value. And these are the weights, and these are the criteria. Stay up and scale, obviously. And then whether AI can actually drive it, so you don't have to manually do everything yourself. Does it keep data correct? That's actually a huge thing. Not everything, especially under concurrent load, doesn't even have to be like heavy concurrent load. Under concurrent load, does your data stay correct? Can you leave, or can you like extend on it? Does data privacy, does like permission, is that there? Can you run it can you understand and run it as a non-coder, right? Because we are talking about non-technical people here. We're not talking to engineers. If you're an engineer, I think the best choice is probably just build everything from scratch, because scaffolding is not very cheap. Cost is going to be a thing, especially whether it's predictable. You don't want to get shocked. Does it have a good ecosystem? And how long has the company been around? Will the solution disappear as you use it? And the company goes under, and then you're left hanging in the bag. You're left holding the bag. And this is how I score them. Each one is ranked 0 to 5. 0 means you can't do it, and then you would multiply these scores against the weight and sum it up, and you get a score from 0 to 100. Disqualifiers means it's fatal. There's a fatal weakness, therefore it caps the total score, no matter how good you do on the other side. So let's take a look at correctness. So what is correctness? One of the most insidious failure modes of any application is when 2 concurrent requests come in, and they all make change in the same entity. Let's say they all change the same inventory value, right? I have a bag. I currently have 1 bag, and 2 requests come in, and they both check, is there a bag available? And the check comes back saying, yes, the bag is available. And then they both do, all right, we're going to set the availability now from 1 to 1 minus 1, which is 0. So both of them write 0 back. Now you just have 0 instead of -1. -1 arguably is wrong too, but 0 is definitely wrong, because now you have 2 orders on the same inventory, which has availability of 1. That's the same thing with booking the last seat, leaving money going out twice, but only get deducted once, and the plethora of other failure cases. Okay, so the money thing I'll go into a bit further. So that's a different failure case. A transfer should happen with 2 operations, a debit on one account and a credit on the other account. Both of them should happen simultaneously, or neither of them should ever happen, right? So what if your backend crashes in the middle? It is a non-zero possibility that it will crash. It could either crash because of lost power, or maybe the machine went down, or maybe it's just you hit some kind of error while processing. Now, you either have debited on one part and then you haven't gotten to credit the other account, and the whole thing crashes, so money has just disappeared, it has vanished. Or you have credited first before you have debited, and now money has been manufactured out of thin air. So neither of this is acceptable. So what you need is a system that guarantees correctness even under those very, people would argue, marginal cases. So that's actually called ACID. People call that ACID, which is atomic, consistent, isolated, and durable. So the one we just described with transferring money, that's acidity. Sorry, that's atomicity. So you cannot have one entity modified without having the other modified. And a lot of the backend systems will guarantee this for you. And if they don't, there is a very involved, there are ways to mitigate that, but that involves like reading the logs yourself and figuring out whether things has actually happened in the database. So you have to like do almost like a double entry bookkeeping in code. So that's a lot more burden than a non-technical person should bear, in my mind. So that's one. The other thing is, as we mentioned, atomicity, consistency, right? What about consistency? One of the popular choices that people used to use a lot more, is MongoDB or any kind of document store. Nowadays, it's like Firebase. Personally, I really, really dislike them because they give people this flexibility that is that has so much more cost. They were initially designed. Excuse me. Got a bit of code here. Yeah, so they were initially designed in the era of like early 2000s, 2010s, early 2010s. That's when the word big data started coming out. Now, what is big data actually? That it used to have a very precise definition. Big data is data so big it doesn't fit on a single computer. That's the definition of big data. Now, if we think about the apps that most people build with vibe coding or with like for a small business, the total amount of data probably doesn't even exceed like 2 gigabytes, or let's say 10 gigabyte, right? It's pretty sizable already. 10 gigabyte of database is, you are looking at, probably 100 million rows. And most people don't even reach that. But 10 gigabyte, if you think about it, on your MacBook, you have 500 gigabytes of storage. 10 gigabyte is smaller than your RAM. You can buy a MacBook Air with 16 gigabytes of RAM. So 10 gigabyte is smaller than your RAM. So why do we go for things that were designed to counter big data problems, to solve big data problems, to treat small data? Okay, so that's one of the things. And then in order to, so for MongoDB, trying to solve the big data problem by getting rid of a lot of guarantees. It no longer has referential integrity. Basically just means like a person can have a post, can declare, the person table can declare they have a post, but the post doesn't exist. And vice versa. So you have these dangling things. And the worst one is rotting in your data. So these document stores, while they give you almost infinite scalability, they have no schema enforcement. It's what people call this schemalessness. And people loved it initially. It was like, oh, I no longer have to design a table. I don't have to say have a post table which has title and content and images, and I no longer have to run migration, which means like later my post may need likes, maybe it needs some kind of fancy metric, I don't know, whatever you want to change. You no longer have to do the migration step before you can put in data. It all sounds fancy and dandy, but the problem is there is no guarantee that your posts created at is a timestamp. It could have been, like text 2001, year 2001, like literally year 2001 written in English. That could be totally valid. There's nothing that stops you from doing it. The system doesn't stop you. And even worse, there's no guarantee there is a created at field at all for a post. In fact, there's nothing stopping you from writing the data that's intended to represent an account directly inside the post. They call them collection. They don't even call them tables. To the post collection. So later, if you want to do aggregation, if you want to do a list, there is no guarantee that these fields exist or they are of the correct type. So you end up with all these glue code and things to catch the wrong stuff when you read it. And it's just a nightmare. It's something that I think everybody should avoid. You get rot, you get dangling pointers, all kinds of crazy stuff. So that's something I strongly advise against using. No schema is a bad thing, especially now because AIs are very good at generating schemas. Prior to this, there is some of an argument that say, oh, I don't know how to code, therefore I can't design a table properly. I can't design table structures properly, but now AI can do it. Just let AI do it. It's like maybe you spend 100,000 tokens doing it. What's that? That's, if you're using like GPT 5.6 Soul, that's 50 cents. Pay that 50 cents now, and your life will be so much better because of it. Will it scale? That's something people actually have at the top of their mind. Can your app run with 10 times more user or 100 times more user? That's actually not a hypothetical question. When you test, you typically test with a very small clique of people, right? You be like either my friends or myself. So you're looking at 10 people. But a real application typically will have like 100 people using it, 100 users, and it's not unlikely that you get 1,000. Case in point, I was in Utah State University, and there was a hackathon. They built an app for the judges to during judging, right? And I was one of the judges. The app worked fine when I was signing up, but when all the judges arrived, which to my surprise was not even that many, it was like 30 judges or 20, I forgot. These, when they all signed on, the entire app just crashed. So in the end, nobody could use the judging app. We had it rely on pen and paper, I think, or it was it eventually moved to like Google Forms. We have to like hand transcribe our decisions onto the Google form because the app crashed at 30 people. That was actually an eye-opening experience for me. I've never thought with modern compute power an app could crash with just 30 people. So clearly something is very fishy inside that app. It's probably vibe coded, and they never thought about like scale testing it, smoke testing it, or load testing it. But anyways, it's nice to get a hang of like how much a platform can support. What is the upper limit if you do things well, and then also obviously if you are really wasteful, there's no helping. So that's a different story. And lastly, can I get out or can I bring people in? That's the the extensibility part. The that's actually not lastly. I mean, that's the other thing that people worry about. Can I get out? Can I export my code? Can I export my data? Can I get an engineer to help me? Can I outsource certain parts of the system to consultancies, or get AI to write pieces of code and integrate it? So that's a two-way question. If the platform is scalable enough, is extensible enough, and is cheap enough, maybe you don't care too much about getting out, but you always will care about getting in. You need to know that you can get custom code into the platform so that that's extensibility. Now, cost. There's two types of things that people should worry about, I think. One is like, is there a ceiling? Will I go bankrupt? There were these horror stories in Firebase as one of the platforms I really dislike. A guy built Firebase is first it's post pay, so you pay on a bill, and secondly it's cost per row, like per read and per write. So some guy in I think in South America built a app for a non-profit doing some stuff. It was used by a lot of people, and they made a mistake. They went to sleep. The next day they wake up, the bill is $6,000. So that's missing spending cap. That's bad, right? Sometimes you rather the service go down than spending $6,000. I think it was 6,000 or maybe even more. I forgot. It was some ridiculous number. The other thing is, can you predict that cost? Are the metrics public? So one of the things that I like to shit on again is Lovable. Their hosting is completely opaque. They say they're gonna charge you credits, but how does the Lovable credits translate to runtime operations? There's no formula. People sometimes used to complain about Bubble for their what they call like the work unit, but Bubble's work units calculation is actually laid out in their manual. They are very expensive, but it's very predictable. If you have trouble making sense of how they charge money, you could totally point an AI to the Bubble manual and then say, here's my user, here's my here's Bubble's cost structure, and here's my like business case, a scenario, and AI will be able to to just let you. They'll give you a way to figure out the numbers, and in Momen we do something similar. We have built out an AI powered uh, cost estimator, and it would turn your estimated well, it will turn your vague description of your app, be it a number of users or the scenario, into user stories and user flows, and then into the operations, individual operations, and then estimate how much you need to pay, and then lay out all the assumptions. And you can go and challenge those assumptions, and then you can also get friends or AI to look at these assumptions and determine whether, independently, to determine whether we are BSing or it actually makes sense. So that's something that's always good. So last four, obviously, can your AI drive it? Can you use your favorite coding thing? For example, say Claude Code, Codex. Um, and if the AI can't read or write the backend, then obviously that's nowadays it kind of disqualifies you. And Momen previously, prior to this, doesn't have that ability. I think it only appeared 2 weeks ago. We now can be driven by Claude Code. Data privacy, that's a very important thing. If that thing does not have a good permission layer, then you're running. That's crazy, right? Don't do it. But it's slightly more nuanced than just does it have privacy. It's like, how expressive is the permission system? Can you say something like, a user can only read rows whose, let's say, let's give a concrete example. Can a person read all the to-do items that belongs to them as well as their subordinates in their organization? Can that be expressed? Those are essentially, uh, in engineering terms, basically joins, SQL joins. Can that be expressed? Or can you say something like, they can only create rows, they can only create posts whose, like, post whose organization ID, right? A post may have attached to an organization, let's say that, whose organization ID is the same as their own. Right? I can only create posts on behalf of my organization, but no one else's organization. So those are the things you should think about. And can a no coder run it? That's obviously, like, can you understand? Can you run it? Doesn't only mean like, well, I guess it's fairly easy. Just can you actually run it? Can you understand what's going on? Can you make sense of all the logic inside? Ecosystem is the forum. How active is the forum? Plugins and tutorials built around it. Longevity is fairly simple. How long has the company been around? There's a famous, maybe not so famous. There is a rule of thumb. People say, if you want to predict how long a thing will be, and then you have no other information, just say that's the same as how long the thing has been. That's exactly, there's actually some math behind it, but we're not going to get into that. Okay, so now the scores, the reveal. As I said, Momen wasn't the highest, so we can look at the top guy is Supabase. And well, actually, you have to weigh these first, right? So let's take a look at individual scores first. I should have put down, like, the actual ranking, but you can look at Supabase. It's good for stays up and scale. AI can drive it. Supabase has a pretty good MCP. Data correct. Well, it's behind. What's behind it is Postgres, and then if you use Supabase correctly, your data can totally be correct. But that's another thing. And then you can see that's the highest score. The blue thing is the highest score of that category. And can you leave? Yes, because the easiest exit, because you can integrate JavaScript into it with their edge function. You can integrate a SQL function into it. That's because it is a code backend in the end, and it is open source, so you can export the entire thing and start it off yourself. There's a caveat. Their edge function ecosystem is not so easy to get out of, but you can always just abandon the edge function and rewrite those in proper Node.js. Is it usable by no coder? Probably not. Because you, especially with the SQL functions and edge functions and the row level security, everything is code. Predictable costs, yeah, it's fairly predictable. And then ecosystems, it should be very good. And longevity's been around for, I mean, it's been around for a while. It was built as a replacement for, it was supposed to be like a better Firebase. Then let's take a look at Momen. It's fairly scalable. It stays up. AI can drive it to an extent, but we don't have full support for AI to drive everything yet. That should come within this month. We are working very hard to complete that support. Data correct. I mean, these are all ranked by AI, right? That I think we'll see why that's not the highest, but AI has their reasons. Data privacy. Not sure why this ranked any lower than Supabase, but we'll see the reason later. No code usable. I don't know why AI ranked us lower than Supabase. It's kind of odd because we are a no code application. And predictable costs. I mean, we are all fairly close to each other, except things that are Firebase. That is the horror story that I gave. Ecosystem, well, I'm gonna be worse than other people. Longevity, we are younger than Supabase. So total, the actual rank, here we go. Supabase is the highest. MongoDB is still high, but for anyone who's using it, I mean, I think correctness, you're gonna suffer from it. I'd rather. I think I don't agree with AI in this case. The AI ranked everything. I don't really agree because I think it's a horrible solution. Firebase. I mean, I think these two kind of live together. They are good for one thing is scale. They do scale pretty well, but it's probably the scale that you don't need. Also, they don't enforce schemas. That's like the correctness is bad. I think for 99% of applications, correctness trumps the absolute ceiling of scaling. Do you need 100 billion rows in a single table? Probably not. Convex is a new and fairly new thing. It's pure code, and it has very good real-time things going on for it. But it has some limitations around things like size of data. The scalability is somewhat limited. Okay, so when I read it, I mean, I always thought Supabase is probably the best overall for vibe coding, but I didn't like the AI's conclusion that it wasn't best at it wasn't like best across all. It was good for a lot of things. Raw scaling wise, yeah, that one I agree. Firebase and MongoDB is very good, but they are bad in other ways. And yeah, that's kind of like Firebase. You can't really exit. MongoDB, I mean, it has a open source version, so yeah, you can exit. That's probably why it's higher. Correctness is just bad. The OG of no code is obviously Bubble. The problem with Bubble is that for some reason, they haven't released a way for people to use uh, Claude Code or Codex to operate on them, which is kind of surprising. Arguably, they have like a lot of tutorials. The thing has been in existence since 2012, so that's like 14 years now. And the other thing that brought it down is cost. It is predictable. It's very costly. And yeah, so this one, that I agree. That I mean, I'm surprised that AI is so critical on them on correctness, but yeah, that's funny. And the other thing that I noticed while trying these out is uh Xano. Xano should be correct and scalable and visual. So they started off as a visual backend, right? And one of the things that I only realized was I asked AI to write some concurrent updates to Xano's roles, and it had correctness issues, which is really surprising. If you can mimic what I did do, so ask AI to write a script to update the same row on Xano concurrently. If you want the best effect, get 10 of them and update one field and set them to different values, right? From the beginning, right? Issue them together and then check the row. You would notice everything is gonna say success. They're gonna run a patch, and everything's gonna say success. And certain columns are just not updated, which is completely crazy. I don't even know how they do it, but that's what I observed. So that's also very difficult to find out if you're just clicking. There's no way you can click fast enough to do it. You have to. But nowadays, running these kind of correctness tests using AI is very trivial. So just ask the whatever your favorite coding agent to do it for you, and you should run that on every single new platform to to get AI to come up with concurrent access to things and make sure it stays correct. Correctness is a lot more rare than people realize. So, my own thing. It's currently landing at the fifth out of seven based on whatever Momen was 2 weeks ago. There might have been a bit more change, but still the coverage of AI driven development is not complete. One things that are still missing right now is permissions. AI can not yet, even though the human can do it, and AI can read the docs to tell you how to do it. We don't have access. The AIs don't have access to read and update your permission settings. That's the biggest drawback. And I think there's a bit of a gap in structured output for agent building inside Momen. So that should get fixed pretty soon. And I hope by the end of this month, the backend will be completely like the coverage of AI on backend will be complete. And pricing wise, we're very competitive. So that's as expected. We do pride ourselves on being economically scalable. We used to have a client which had 120K DAU paying only, I think, 120 times 5, $600 a month. So that's something I think no other. I'm putting, that's a pretty strong claim, but I think up to now I don't know if any other platform can, like, no code backends, or even I think you may be able to do it with Supabase. I'm not sure, but 120K DAU for a whole month at $600. That's I've never heard of that anywhere. And we can't let you export the code because there is no code to export, and that's obviously gonna put us really low on you can't leave easily. You cannot leave. Backups are thin. Yet that is correct. Our backups are only run every day. I think 0 at midnight UTC. And there is no download button for you to do it on your own. You will have to contact us to get a backup. So that's, I mean, I agree with the assessment. That's something we will have to work on. And one of the things I've been trying to do for a really long time is to have like data versioning into your application. And designing data versioning correctly is going to take some thinking, I think. Okay. So what are we good for? We're really good for a non-technical founder to build the entire application on. And then you have no developer to help you. You have AI, but you don't actually hire a person. Why do I make that distinction, right? Because when you are non-technical and you want to build an application, you can totally use AI to build. You can do that with almost all the platforms aforementioned. But when it comes to validating and verifying the logic on that backend, we are like Momen and Xano. We're excluding Bubble at this point because you can't use AI to build on it. So assuming AI's built it and then you have no developer to help you, how do you verify that this is correct? Xano and Momen are the two platforms that allows you to visually check everything that's built. So if you spend energy, brain cells on the actual configuration, you'll be able to figure out what the hell's going on. Other platforms in here, which is Mongo and Firebase and Supabase, all the logic is written in code, and there is a barrier. Okay, so you can totally change the weights because those are just criteria. Those are just criteria. You can change them. You can change the rubric, make it yours, and ask AI to reweigh it. I have done exactly that. As I said, Momen is the best for a non-technical solopreneur. Now I have changed the weights to favor me, right? Obviously, I have changed the weights. So I made correctness, scalability, comprehensibility, control, cost, extensibility the top ones, and the rest becomes low. Okay, so you don't have to agree with this because this is just an example of me tuning the numbers to my favor. But the correct use of this is obviously you tune these numbers so the framework better fit your needs. So the shift becomes this, and therefore the reason is it used to be like Supabase went down. It used to excel at built by AI, and then you can exit it entirely and then have your dedicated engineers to work on it. Now that's off the table because we're specifically talking about solopreneurs. They're not going to hire anyone. And they're non-technical. They're non-technical solopreneurs, so that doesn't exist anymore. That's why it went down 4 points. MongoDB, I don't know what happened. I don't really care. I think nobody should pick it, but that's that. And then Momen went up 4 points, mostly because observability. The logs in Momen is in one place and it's correlated. That's very different from Supabase or other platforms. Momen's cost is, I think we're like similar to Supabase. I've never run actual numbers, so that's one thing. Correctness, well, we pay a lot of attention to correctness, so that's probably why it went up. We changed the correctness to have higher weights. The others kind of stayed mostly the same. Xano went down 1. Convex went down 1. I think that's because like non-technical solopreneur thing. Convex is for technical people, basically. It is pure code. And yeah, that's that. Okay, so how do you make use of this framework to make your own? Well, first of all, you should decide your own disqualifiers. Does your thing touch money, inventory, and booking? If these make like correctness the hard requirement. If you can't get concurrent access correct, then you don't have an application. You have something that's waiting to explode at the worst time, because these concurrent access only happen when your thing is successful. So you don't want to be cursed by your success, to put it that way. So that becomes like a really hard line. If you store other people's personal data, you don't want to get sued. Therefore, you probably need really good privacy control. And then if you want real-time updates, like that's the core of your application because they are real-time, then Convex and Firebase, those are the best for real-time stuff. If it's report heavy, then you want offline cheap aggregation. That basically means Supabase, Momen, and to an extent MongoDB, and maybe Xano. I've never run aggregation on Xano. I don't know how much it costs. That's just based on my impression of Xano. Regulation, if you're working in health, finance, in Europe, well, you need the correct certification, right? If you need HIPAA, then Momen's off the table. That's simple as that. And then you can just score each tool on all 9 of that. And get AI to do it. Get AI to do deep research and do those. And things that you can test on your own to verify the correctness claims. Get AI to do all these. It's quite, it will cost you 30 minutes. Just let AI run, let AI write these tests, and you get a lot more confidence that way. Because, like, if you can detect it goes wrong, then obviously you can disqualify it. If you can't get it to go crazy after 30 minutes, then it still doesn't prove that it's correct. It's just good. At least it's like it's one of the situations where it's like you can never prove innocence. It just doesn't exist. You always assume guilty, and even if you're open source, there's still like it's an unsolved problem because voting problem. Like you cannot prove the software is correct. Okay, and lastly, thing that's before concluding is if you read marketing messages that say you don't have to worry about it, uh, and if they say like, okay, the price, build it first, don't think about cost. You cannot get any data out or logic. I mean, you should be able to get something out. Data is absolute minimum because you own the data, right? That I think that's the line. You own the data, and if something doesn't allow you to export the data, that is a big trap. I don't think anyone does that as a BaaS at the moment. And demos should showcase obscure um well, they obviously should showcase happy path, but they also should showcase obscure failure modes and how the the platform tries to provide guarantees to not trigger these failure modes. And safe by default is obviously good, and pricing, well, the opposite. So, and then the last thing is docs that actually lay bare their limits. If they say our thing works up, we have tested against 100 million rows, then you can probably trust that. But if they don't mention any of that, then put a start doubting it because they're probably trying to hide something. And rule of thumb, if you're just testing an idea for the week, then do whatever you want. Nobody cares. If you want a real product, and then you are good with AI, and you're good with coding, use Supabase or Convex if you have real-time requirements. If you want to build a real product and then you don't have a developer, then you should try a no-code backend, which is like Momen, Xano, and actually maybe Bubble. I'll get rid of that because you can't really. I mean, if you don't use AI at all, then I guess it doesn't matter. But nowadays, who doesn't? And again, money, health, booking, correctness, and privacy. And to echo what I said in the first slide, try to get a platform that gives you more guarantees than responsibilities. Things should be correct by default rather than having you or the AI to remember to do certain things, to expend extra effort every time that scenario triggers. These failure cases should be made hard to trigger rather than if you forget to do something, it will always trigger. That's that. Yeah. So to conclude, we'll provide the entire writing in the description, and you can always modify the framework and adopt it as your own. Thank you very much, and that is the doc, and you can scan this, and then you will be able to see it. I think unless we have questions, that'll be it today, and thank you very much, and see you next time. Oh, by the way, next time what we'll do is showcasing how to use AI to drive moment development, because since now that is a thing.